Patient.
Joe Buttress, Assistant Warden.
All right, good morning. And we have before us, Mr. Lavigne, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and your DOC number.
Yes, ma'am. James Conrad Levine, 356109.
Right. Council with you this morning. Good morning, sir. Would you introduce yourself?
Good morning, Keith Nordyke, appearing on behalf of James Levine.
Okay. And before we get started this morning, Mr. Nordyke and Mr. Levine, it's been Judge Bonnie Jackson served as the trial judge in the case of Mr. Levine. She's on the pardon board this morning. Is there any objection to her participating in this case?
No, ma'am. In fact, I consider it an honor.
None whatsoever, Your Honor.
We also have Judge Tony Marabella, who represented a co-defendant in this case. Is there objection to him seeking to participate this morning?
No, ma'am. Not at all.
No, Ms. Renatson, none, no opposition at all.
All right, so we will proceed. So, Mr. Levine, I'll read some identifying information into the record, after which we'll conduct the interview with you. Let me just ask the folks who are there with you, I don't have a list of who they are. If we could introduce your guests who are there at front.
Yes, ma'am.
Kaylin Gregg.
Go ahead, sir.
And I'm Jim Levine, his father.
Okay.
We also have his mother, Roberta Levine, and his nephew, Jordan Levine, who's outside the camera view.
Okay, and we also have joining by Zoom, we have Anthony Orazio, Melissa Gates and aunt, Mike Gasho, friend, Anthony Legault, I'm sorry if I've mispronounced those names, employer. We can allow 3 folks to speak on behalf, so at the appropriate time, Mr. Nordyke, do you know who will be speaking?
I do, I'll speak at the end, but I understand that Mr. Levine's father, his fiance, and Michael Gottschall will be the 3 speakers. Otherwise, they've been advised that we have 10 minutes max, 2 minutes and a half each.
Thank you. Okay, so at the appropriate time, we'll call on those who've indicated they'd like to speak on your behalf. So, Mr. Levine, as mentioned, your DOC number is 356109. You're here this morning seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in East Baton Rouge Parish, September 1995, to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. Levine, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Okay, your case has been assigned to Mr. Freeman this morning. Would you answer his question?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Levine, how old are you?
I'll be 50 in March.
And how long have you been in jail on this charge?
Just a little over 30 years.
30. What's your educational level?
Right now, I'm attending college through Ashland University. I have several VOTEC degrees, and I have a GED.
Yeah, you received your GED while you was in prison?
No, sir, just before my arrest.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what went on that night? What was going through y'all mind? What was y'all planning?
Originally, it started out, we were supposed to go and steal a vehicle for the purpose of getting Dale Craig, one of my co-defendants, to get him to his girlfriend's house. We made a few attempts to steal the vehicle, never were able to get one. And eventually it turned out to, well, we're all just going to go out and see what we can do. And Dale Craig basically shoved his gun in Kip Gullett's face and forced him back into his vehicle. We all got in the vehicle and left. We rode around for a little while, and finally, ostensibly, we were supposed to knock him out and leave him. I struck Mr. Gullett on the back of the head, knocking him out. Dale Craig shot him in the head. And when we left with the vehicle, we went to his girlfriend's house and she wasn't even there. She'd already made it back to Craig's house on her own. Rendering the whole thing completely pointless. The next morning, we went and dumped the vehicle on the levee and set it on fire.
Were y'all high on drugs or drunk?
Not during the commission, no, sir. I mean, I routinely drank and used drugs at the time, which kind of predisposed me to the whole thing, but not at the time of the commission, no, sir.
Have you received any treatment for your
Yes, sir.
drink?
Yes. I've been through all the substance abuse classes that they offer. Early on, I joined the AA group at David Wade, and I attended that for a while. I stopped because I never felt the need or the desire to use, and I figured I was okay. Recently, I started going again because I've been able to handle this okay. But if I go back out there, I don't know what I'm going to face. I'm a little scared. I don't want to fall back. Yes, sir.
You consider yourself alcoholic?
Of course. I mean, once you're sick, you're with addiction, you're always sick. Which is why I started attending again, because I don't know what kind of new stress is on my face. And I want to make sure I don't fall back into that trap.
What would be your sobriety plan?
First step, I'm gonna need a sponsor. Somebody that I know can hold me accountable. Somebody to watch my back and make sure I don't go back into the same patterns. I don't plan to, I definitely don't. I've got a pretty good support system. But I want to find somebody who's independent of me and my family, so they're not prejudiced or biased towards me doing stupid things and saying it's okay. Does that make sense?
Sir, it does. It's weird, but the parents are unopposed to you getting out.
I'm sorry, they're not opposed?
The parents
Yes, sir.
are unopposed to you getting out. What kind of pain do you think you cause these people?
Can't even imagine. I've tried to play a game with myself. The closest thing I have to a child is my nephew. And I've asked myself a dozen times, more than a dozen, what would I feel if something happened to him? Can't even imagine. They're amazing people that they can not oppose, because I can't even begin to imagine what I did to them.
I see you've taken several classes.
Yes, sir.
Just give one or two of them that affected you the most.
A couple that have affected me the most. Definitely, I've taken several victims awareness and victims impact classes. I think this last one hit me the hardest. You know, because I've had so many things going on with the pardon hearing and so on and so forth. And I think the victims impact, because part of what we did is we watched videos of people that survived a crime. And every time I tried to put the Gullett family's face on that victim to try to better understand what I did to them. So I think that one definitely. I know the one that's had, it's not really a class I took, but the hospice program really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I actually had to stop hospice for a while because I got kind of close to a couple of those guys. And I had to watch them go. Willie Peters especially, that was really hard for me. So as far as an impact, I think definitely the hospice and the victims impact classes.
Okay. You also, I see, are sign language interpreter.
Yes, sir.
Still out with that?
Yes, it's still involved. We're trying to get that back online. They're trying to do it all computer based now through Zoom and whatnot. It's had an impact. But I think more than that, it's just really opened my eyes to a lot more things that are out there. That's been more of a joy than anything. I've really enjoyed the sign language program, meeting some of those people.
I see you did the victim impact program.
Yes, sir.
With the dialogue, I'm talking about offender dialogue.
No, the VOD, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I did. I wasn't even gonna mention that. I did. I met with Ms. Gullett. I feel like she let me off easy. She was nicer to me than I deserved. And just an amazing, amazing woman. Thank you. Yeah, she's pretty special.
Okay. You're a member of Toastmasters?
Toastmasters, yeah. I've been involved in Toastmasters for a very long time. Probably about 12, 13 years.
I'm not even trying to go through everything you've done since you've been in there. It's pretty impressive. I would say this, you haven't wasted your time while you've been there. Low risk, security is minimum. You had 12 write-ups. The last one was in 2008. Martin, what can you tell me about Mr. Lavigne?
Yeah, Mr. Freeman, like I said, he's accomplished a lot since he's been here. But he's also given back a lot to the offender population. He serves as a mentor, and like you said, with the hospice program, he's got a lot of family support, as you can see. He's got a good transition plan for his sobriety and for employment. The staff speaks really high of him. He's definitely doing the right things here. Thank you.
I have no further questions.
All right, the folks who've indicated they'd like to speak on your behalf. First, we'd like to hear from the folks who are there at Hunt. Kayla, could we hear from you?
Okay. My name is Kaylin Grigg, and just to give you a little background, I worked for the state for over 17 years with information security. So I do a lot of work with law enforcement. So I have a good respect for the law anyway. I met James when we were teens, and he was extremely an angry boy. And now most teens are, but he was kind of excessive. Then we met again later in life, and he is completely different, a completely changed person. He's very at peace with his life and trying to help other people be at peace with it too. He's someone I'm very proud to know and to be with. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to hear from Mr. Jim Lavigne.
Jim Lavigne, James's father. As Kaylin said years ago, he was a very angry young man. So bad that when he was in parish prison, I blocked the number several times because quite often the conversation ended up with his mother crying. He calmed down. He, went to Wade for several years and, started turning his life around. Now, he's had hospice. He's, an accomplished, woodworker. He's mentored many people. He was Toastmaster of the Year. He's done a bunch. Every course he could take, he's taken. He's done nothing but work to improve himself and to become a proper citizen. And so, in light of his improvements, I ask that you let him come home so they can be the contributing citizen to our society rather than a burden. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, and then Mr. Gasho.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you, for giving me this opportunity. I was granted parole about almost 5 years ago. So I've known him almost 30 years. I think it was 1994 when he came to Wade. I have slept next to him. I have been in cell blocks with him, in the dorms with him. And, like, he was angry, he was an angry kid. When he got there, he was almost like a caged wild animal. But even from day one, he always had the very best advice for me, even though he didn't take it himself. And, there's a period, in the beginning of anybody's incarceration where it's not really, it's not real. And it took him a while to realize that, just like, I did. I felt like it was just an eye opener when his co-defendants started going home and he was still there. And it was like a light switch went off in his head. And he started taking his own advice. He started just helping, everybody around him become better people. And that's what, made him a better person. When you give of yourself, that, helps, your soul. And I feel like he's a amazing teacher, and he's been, a mentor for me for many years, and he's always had great advice, and which has led me to be successful. And I feel like him staying in prison is a waste. I feel like him being able to speak to troubled youths would be amazing in the community out here. So thank you for hearing me, and I pray that y'all grant this clemency today for him. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Levine, before we turn it over to your attorney, what would you like to say to the board?
I've thought about this a lot, and I thought I'd have something prepared, but I don't. It changes every day. The main thing I want to say is to that family, the Kipps family. I know I took more out of the world than I could ever put back in. He was doing what he was supposed to do. He was doing the right things. And he should have never even met me. I want to take it back. I want to back the clock up and do something different. Something that would leave him in the world. I can't ever say I'm sorry, I know. I've tried to make my life mean something. That's what drives me. That's what keeps me moving. Is knowing that I took something out of the world. I hope that I can put some good back in. And wherever I am, whatever happens here today, I'm going to continue to work with whoever I can, doing whatever good I can, wherever I am. I put my family through hell, and I know it. They're suffering just as bad as I have. And one of the main things I've learned is that I'm not the center of the universe. Everything I do affects other people, good or bad. I'm sorry. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Nordike?
Thank you. I think what we've seen today is a remarkable demonstration of remorse and rehabilitation both. And we often see these in pardon hearings, clemency hearings, commutation hearings, but this one stands out. This one stands out. And it stands out for a couple of reasons. One is the memo I filed has about 5 pages of accomplishments, which is in and of itself unique. It shows a man who's been busy and kept himself busy the entire time he's been incarcerated. But if you look behind the sheer numbers, what you see also are a number of things that are giving back. His mentorship, his hospice work. It takes a lot to be a hospice volunteer. That's not an easy job for anybody. I'm not sure I could do it. And I just have to say that's an amazing thing. He's been through, I wasn't going to mention it, but it was brought up earlier. He's been through the VOD program, which also takes a lot. And he did it, and I commend him for it. He's had all of the major programs that this board has been requesting: Cage Your Rage, anger management, victim awareness, T4C, 100 hours, living in balance. He's got a residence plan. He's got a sobriety plan. He's got a family support network. And amazingly, he doesn't have opposition from the parents. I would ask for his commutation and parole eligibility, and we'll go from that point. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. All right. Board,
Yes,
let's
ma'am.
start with Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Levine, I really feel you've been very straightforward with us today. And that's kind of unusual. You didn't duck around none of the questions. You answered them truly. And we appreciate that. Also, like your dad said, you've done a lot to improve yourself. And you've given back to your prison community. Now I really feel like it's time to give back to society, not just the prison community. So my vote today is going to be to grant, to commute your sentence to 62 years with parole eligibility.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson.
Thank you.
Mr. Levine, we meet again.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember the conversation at the request of your attorney that we had where I talked to you about the law principles,
Yes, ma'am.
advised you, to take that into consideration as you were pondering the offer that the district attorney's office made for you to plead to manslaughter. And at that time, manslaughter only carried 21 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And I really felt bad, when you didn't take the advice and you ended up going to trial and get convicted of second-degree murder. But as I look at you now, my thought is, you know what? It's a good thing he didn't take it. Because had he taken it, he would not be the man sitting before us today. Would not have been the transformed individual that we see today. And so out of good, out of bad can come a lot of good. And you have demonstrated a lot of good. You have standing institutional record. You have worked very hard on yourself. But more impressively, you have given back to people. You have experienced the grace of forgiveness that came from Kip's mother. And I think that has had a profound impact on you. So my vote today, likewise, is to commute your sentence. Was it 62 years?
Yes, yes.
62 years with parole eligibility.
Thank you.
Mr. Rocha?
Mr. Lavigne, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I'm very impressed by the excellent performance during incarceration.
Thank you.
The positive remarks one, an excellent transition plan. And the victims' parents are unopposed. You don't see that very often. My vote is a little different than Mr. Freeman's. My recommendation is that we commute your sentence to 60 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am.
Madam Chairman. Mr. Levine, it's very clear to me you are a totally different person than you were when this happened.
Yes,
Your
sir.
remorse is clear, it comes through. How you have transformed yourself is I know what Judge Jackson said. As a former judge, that's what we want to see people who go to prison for.
Yes, sir.
You have accomplished everything anyone could have ever asked of you in prison. And I was involved in representing Zebby Berthelot.
Yes,
To
sir.
me, Ms. Gullett's letter in her support of you is phenomenal. It tells me who she is, and it tells me who she knows you are. So my vote likewise is the same. And I'm not a mathematician, and I'm not sure why Mr. Roche said 60 years instead of 62, but I'm going to go along with the 60 years because that might get you out much quicker. So that would be my vote. To recommend commutation 60 years with parole eligibility. So good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Levine, I want to compliment you on the work that you've done. You know, you said that you'd had a lot going on. You've been prepared for this for quite a while for today. But it's clear from the record that you started preparing early on in your incarceration. Never knowing this would be a possibility for you. You've done a lot of hard work, and I want to commend you for your service to others. My vote today also is to grant the commutation of sentence, and my vote would also be for the 60 years. So you take a unanimous vote to recommend commutation of your sentence, and the majority recommends a commutation to 60 years. So that is the recommendation we're making. Good luck.
Thank you, ma'am. Take care, guys. Thank you.
That concludes our business at your facility. We're going to adjourn at 6:34. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I left my mic on not mute. I hope it. So he got commuted, and now the governor will have the option to sign off on the commutation. There's no guarantee. Also, there's a new governor coming into office. It could take a couple years till they even sign it. We've seen that happen. and then he would have another parole hearing, which is usually procedural, and then he would get released. Now, what's so interesting to me about this case is the history on it. And I have like a bunch of transcripts from the different co-defendants and an interesting story to tell you about one of them, because he was rearrested just recently. And one of them was given the death penalty by Miss Jackson, and it was commuted because he was 17 years old at the time. So it was reversed. He's serving life in prison still, though. Although he is trying to contest that. The idea that Mr. Mirabella was an attorney for a co-defendant and Miss Jackson was an attorney for him and also a co-defendant. It's pretty fascinating. Not an attorney, a judge, that they were both judges. Interesting to say that he said at the beginning it would be an honor. I mean, she sentenced you to life. I don't know if what she was saying was that she was required to sentence him to life. He had that plea deal at the beginning and he turned it down. And I think Miss Jackson is right that it was good he turned it down, because if you look at where his co-defendant ended up after he got parole. So he received parole in 2002, one of his co-defendants, because he was only 17 at the time of the crime, not the man who pulled the trigger. And just now in 2019, he was arrested for accessory after the fact, although it might have been upgraded, but I can't tell, for murder. They found it seems, dead woman in his house. So there were 2 people arrested. So that was one of his co-defendants. So he had served like 20 years, got paroled in 2002, and then didn't take, well, then he's arrested again. Pretty crazy. That's one co-defendant. The other co-defendant got death penalty, and because he was 16 at the time, he's the one who shot him. Yeah, he was. No, I'm sorry. The man who was just rearrested, who got paroled, was 16 at the time, and he was really a boy. And then the 17-year-old also a boy. So what happened is that it was really the most senseless crime. The most senseless crime. For some reason, they decided that they needed to have a truck. They needed a car. I don't really. It's like I'll drop the court transcripts, but it doesn't really give much of a good reason. They needed a car, and they decided. I think it was because he needed to pick up his girlfriend or something. So there was 3 of them, and they were looking for a car, and then they saw someone getting into a car. So they kind of like jumped him. They hit him over the head with a gun a bunch of times, threw him into the wheel well of his truck. It was a truck that they stole. They drove around, got gas, and then they decided, okay, we need to go put him somewhere so we can steal his truck, and so that he won't, so that he can't, so they say, okay, let's put him behind the library. But they're like, no, he'll get to a payphone. There's a payphone there. So they drove him out to somewhere far away. Remember, this was a time before cell phones. And they just wanted to put him somewhere so that it would take him a long time to walk back and make a phone call, and they can get away with it somehow. I don't know how, but okay. When they let him out, James was holding him on one arm, and one of his co-defendants was holding him on the other arm. And he saw the co-defendant like nudging him, like winking, like go do something. So he thought that, okay, he had to do something. So he took out his gun and he hit him on the back of the head like a bunch of times till he fell. He claims that he then turned around and started walking back to the car when he heard gunshots. And there were 3 gunshots, 3 bullets put into the back of his head by the 17-year-old, who was then given the death penalty by Miss Jackson. They drove home. They lived with their mom. And that's when one of them confessed to his girlfriend that he committed the murder. The next day it was in the news. The mom asked what's going on, what happens. They admitted it. They then drove the truck out somewhere in the woods to light it on fire. The mother actually went with them to get them a ride back. I don't know what happened with her, but I'm sure she got arrested. And then they got arrested, confessed. I think two of them pleaded, took the stand against their co-defendant, and kind of the rest is history. So a completely senseless, disgusting crime. And the boy they killed, okay, because he was a boy, he was an LSU student, and he was 17 years old. Wait, he was, no, he might have been, he was older than 17. Was he 20 years old, 19 years old? He was in LSU. He was 18. He was 18 years old. They said that he begged for his life. It's just terrible. Now the parents forgave him, which is hard to, I don't know. Then how do you feel he did on his interview? I mean, obviously he did everything he could do in prison. I thought that the way he answered certain questions, it was very unique to what we just haven't heard. It wasn't like the typical, I wish I could take it back, I made a mistake. He used the example of his nephew, the closest thing to his son, which seemed very authentic. The one thing I didn't like about the interview was near the end when he said that, what did he do? He like kind of compared his suffering with their suffering. And it's like, I get that you're in prison and you suffered, but you don't have a right to compare your suffering with their suffering. They stole his Ford Bronco. It was a Ford Bronco. They were 16 to 19. So it's pretty sick. Oh, he was just a week shy of his 18th birthday. That's interesting. Craig was a week shy of his 18th birthday. So it's to me again, it's just fascinating that Bonnie Jackson was the judge and even sentenced the shooter to death. That was then overturned because of his age. We have James, who was given a plea bargain deal, which would have gotten out. She said 21 years, but I think it's 25 years. I thought I heard 21, but either way, he would have gotten out. He didn't accept it, went to trial, got life. Mr. Mirabella was the judge for the other man who then got out on parole and is now back in prison on second-degree murder charge. So the three in the crime, one was given the death penalty and is got changed to life, and now he's trying to get a new trial, but I don't think that will ever happen. The other got out after 20 years on parole and is now back in prison. And now we have James. And I think he was locked up the longest. Well, outside of he's going to get out. And by all accounts, it does seem like everything, in this case, I have no objection to it. If the parents don't object, I certainly don't. And he's done everything that he could do. And he didn't pull the trigger. He was a bad kid by all accounts, but he didn't pull the trigger. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But with that, I'll let you go.